As part of the BikeRadar Women's Road Bike of the Year Awards, we tested 6 bikes back to back using a reader panel that we recruited online, as well as individually testing the bikes in the sub £1,000 category, and the bikes on test were the Trek Lexa S, the Specialized Dolce Sport Disc, the Liv Avail 1, the Scott Contessa Speedster 15, the Pinnacle Dolomite 5 and the GT Grade. So now I'm going to take you through the top 5 finalists in this category, finishing up with the runner-up and the overall category winner. So first up, we've got the Pinnacle Dolomite 5. The bike features an alloy frame with a carbon bladed fork with alloy steerer. The bike's interesting because it features hydraulic disc brakes, which at this price point is quite rare. It also includes lugs, so that if you do want to attach a pannier rack or full mudguards to it, you can. This women's version of the Dolomite 5 features women's specific design, so it's slightly shorter and more upright position than the unisex version of the Dolomite. While most of the testers found the bike quite pleasant to ride, we all found the saddle deeply uncomfortable. Now that is a personal matter, but the fact that quite a lot of us felt the same way is telling. Another great feature of the bike at this price point is the Shimano 105 group set. However, on the downside, it does only come with an 11 to 28 tooth cassette, which as some of our riders felt wasn't quite enough to get up some of the bigger climbs. The bike felt quite stiff, which made it feel quite secure in corners, but also a little top heavy, so when we stood up and gave it some power, it did feel a little unbalanced. The Specialized Dolce Sport Disc is the second disc brake bike in this category, but this time we're looking at Tektro Spire mechanical disc brakes rather than hydraulic disc brakes. But our riders did notice the difference. They weren't quite as responsive as the hydraulic brakes. There are a few features on this bike which perhaps look as though they might match up unfavourably to the other bikes in this category, such as the fact that it comes spec'd with a 9-speed Shimano Sora group set. However, when it came to it, this bike was surprisingly good at climbing and a really comfortable ride, partly due to the fact that the bike features slightly wider 28C tyres, which we could really feel the difference when riding over uneven ground. They just provided a bit more cushioning and insulation against the lumps and bumps. Another mark in the plus column for this bike are the lugs, which means that if you want to fit full mudguards or a pannier rack, you can, which also makes this a good option if you do want to consider doing a little bit of touring or you want to use it as a commuter bike. Our testers also found that the contact points really added to the comfort in this bike, so the Specialized Body Geometry Riva saddle went down very well, as did the gel pads on the Specialized Roubaix bar tape. The Scott Contessa Speedster 15 is a bike built around a racier geometry than the endurance geometry seen on quite a lot of the other bikes in this category. One of the key elements of this bike is that it's designed with a more aero profile than some of the other bikes in this category. Continuing with the women's specific design elements of this bike are the narrower handlebars, which a lot of our riders got on well with. However, if you are broader in the shoulders, you might find a little bit narrow. We also really appreciated the 11 to 32 tooth cassette, which gave us a wider range of gears, a few more easier gears to get up those sharp climbs. Our testers really appreciated the look of this bike. It's quite distinctive from the others in this category, with its black background and flashes of neon colour on top. On the flip side, it's quite a stiff bike, so while that's great in terms of acceleration, our riders did feel like the ride was a little uncomfortable and uncompromising. Our penultimate bike is the Trek Lexa S, and it was a really close run competition between this bike and the ultimate category winner. So this is another bike that features a more racy geometry rather than an endurance geometry frame. And again, this one also is a women's specific design bike, so it has that slightly shorter reach and slightly more upright position. Now this bike does feature the slightly cheaper Shimano Sora group set compared to the 105 that we've seen on some of the other bikes in this category. And while this marked it down a little, there are other elements of the bike that more than compensated for it, not least the price, because this is the cheapest bike in our test. The handling on this bike was amazing. It felt like a bike twice the price. It was nimble in corners, it turned easily, it felt really planted, it felt stable at speed, it accelerated fantastically well. In fact, apart from the gearing and the brakes, which is another reason we marked it down, we would be more than happy to ride this bike a lot. So while our testers really enjoyed riding the Trek Lexa, the generic dual pivot brakes unfortunately mean that we can't give this bike the category winner because they just didn't provide the stopping power to give us confidence on the descents. So by process of elimination, you've probably worked out that the winner of this category is in fact the Live Avail 1. Like many of the other bikes in this category, it has a women's specific design, so again that shorter reach and slightly more upright position. But it's also an endurance frame, so it has slightly slacker angles to give it more of a comfortable feeling on longer distances. Adding to the comfort factor, in addition to the carbon forks which you'd kind of expect on a bike around this price point, is the fact that Liv have opted for a carbon composite seat post. In practice, this meant that our testers found the ride very comfortable and smooth, eliminating a lot of the buzz that you got off the uneven road surface. Another interesting feature of this bike is the fact that it features cross-top brake levers as well as the brake levers on the hoods, which might be quite useful for riders who aren't perhaps used to riding on road bikes and are used to riding on flat bar bikes. It's also worth noting that our testers really liked the look of this bike. It features an all-over pattern in shades of blue and grey, so it stands out, looks striking but without looking too girly, and that went down really well with our testers. Overall, our testers loved this bike. It represents excellent value for money, it climbs well, it's a joy to ride, and if you are in the market for a bike at around this price point, we strongly suggest you check out the Live Avail.